Sometimes, love doesn't look like flowers, confessions, or long romantic messages. Sometimes it hides behind silence, hesitation, and fear. You might think he's distant, distracted, or just not that into you. But what if he's not pulling away because he doesn't care? What if he's pulling away because he cares too much? There are people who fall deeply but love quietly, who feel everything intensely but are too scared to show it. They've been hurt before, maybe left, maybe betrayed, maybe never given a chance to be fully seen. So now, even as they start to fall for someone new, they hold themselves back. They overthink every word, every look, every moment, because in their mind, love has always been the beginning of pain. So they hide their feelings in small, strange ways, in glances, in silence, in little actions that speak louder than their words ever could. They want to be close, but they're terrified of being broken again. And if you're wondering whether he might be one of them, this is for you. Here are 12 subtle but powerful signs that he's falling for you, but believes that getting too close might just hurt him in the end. Watch closely, because these signs aren't always loud, but they are real. And sometimes all it takes is one person noticing to change everything. 1. He avoids eye contact when emotions get intense. When someone is falling for you but is afraid of getting hurt, they often find it difficult to maintain eye contact during emotionally charged moments. This isn't because they don't care. In fact, it's usually the opposite. Eye contact can feel incredibly vulnerable, especially when someone is hiding deep feelings. Looking into someone's eyes can feel like exposing a secret, like silently admitting everything they're trying so hard to keep inside. For a guy who's emotionally guarded, intense eye contact can trigger fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being seen too clearly, or fear that you might not feel the same way. So instead, he might look away, down, or even pretend to be distracted. This small action becomes a shield, a way to protect his heart from giving too much away. You might notice this during moments when the conversation turns serious, or when you're opening up about something meaningful. Just when you think he might respond with something heartfelt, he glances away. It can be confusing, but often it's a silent sign that he feels more than he's letting on, and he's terrified that falling for you might leave him broken. 2. He checks your stories but rarely replies. When someone checks your stories but rarely replies, it often means they're emotionally invested but hesitant to show it openly. Watching your stories becomes a quiet way of staying connected to your life without actually stepping into it. It's like he's standing just outside the door, peeking in, curious, interested, maybe even longing, but too afraid to knock. This behavior usually comes from a place of fear and overthinking. He might be worried that if he replies too often, he'll come off as too eager, too obvious, or worse, vulnerable. Instead, he chooses to stay in the background, keeping a close eye on what you're doing, where you are, who you're with, all without saying a word. He wants to feel close to you, but from a safe distance. Every time he views your story, it's like a silent "I miss you" or "I care," even if he never types a single word. It's a way of staying involved in your world while protecting his own heart. This kind of quiet attention can say more than 1,000 messages if you know how to read between the lines. 3. He listens carefully but speaks very little. When he listens carefully but speaks very little, it's often a quiet confession of how much he cares. He pays attention to your words, your tone, even the things you don't say. He notices the small changes in your mood, remembers details from past conversations, and lets you talk without interrupting. This kind of listening isn't casual, it's intentional, and it comes from a place of deep emotional connection. But the reason he doesn't say much isn't because he's not interested. It's because he's scared. Scared that if he opens up, his feelings might slip out. Scared that the wrong words might push you away. So instead, he chooses silence, not out of distance, but out of self-protection. His silence is a defense. He's falling for you, but he's holding himself back, unsure if it's safe to fall completely. In those quiet moments where he listens so closely, he's actually showing how deeply he feels. He just doesn't have the courage yet to put it into words. So he lets your voice fill the space, hoping you'll feel what he can't quite say. He opens up, then suddenly pulls back. When he opens up and then suddenly pulls back, it's often a sign that he's torn between his feelings and his fear. In the moment, he might feel safe enough to let his guard down, to share something personal, something real. You might catch a glimpse of his softer side, his past, his emotions, but just as quickly as that door opens, it slams shut again. This sudden shift isn't because he's playing games. It's usually because the vulnerability hits him all at once. Opening up feels good in the moment, but afterward, he starts to overthink. Did I say too much? Did I look weak? What if she doesn't feel the same? That fear of emotional exposure makes him retreat, even if he doesn't want to. You might feel confused by his hot and cold behavior. One day he's deep and open, the next he's distant or hard to reach. But that pullback is a sign of someone who cares deeply, yet is scared of the consequences. He's battling with himself. One part wants to let you in, the other is terrified you'll leave once you truly know him. 5. He gets jealous but hides it with jokes. When he gets jealous but hides it with jokes, it's one of the clearest signs he feels more for you than he's ready to admit. Jealousy has a way of revealing hidden emotions, especially in someone who's trying to act like he doesn't care. So instead of expressing how he truly feels, he masks it with humor, sarcasm, or light teasing. If you mention another guy, he might make a joke like, "Oh, so he's your new favorite now?" with a forced smile. On the surface, it seems playful, but underneath there's tension, a flicker of insecurity, a fear of losing your attention or affection. He turns jealousy into laughter, so he doesn't have to confront or explain the real emotions rising inside him. This kind of behavior usually comes from someone who's emotionally guarded. He doesn't want to seem possessive or vulnerable, so he uses humor as a shield. But those jokes carry weight. They're not just casual remarks. They're glimpses into what he's too afraid to say out loud. I like you, and I don't want anyone else to have what I'm scared to ask for. 6. He remembers tiny details you forgot. When he remembers tiny details you forgot, it's a quiet but powerful sign that he's emotionally invested in you. Maybe it's the way you like your coffee, the song you mentioned once in passing, or a story you told weeks ago that even you barely remember. But he does. And he brings it up at just the right moment, like it was never lost on him. This kind of attention doesn't come from someone who's indifferent. It comes from someone who's truly present when you speak, someone who's listening not just with his ears but with his heart. Remembering the small things is his way of showing that you matter to him, even if he can't bring himself to say it directly. For a guy who's falling for you but afraid to get hurt, actions speak louder than words. So instead of confessing his feelings outright, he leaves a trail of moments, little reminders that he sees you, that he values you, and that somewhere in the silence, he cares more than he'll admit. These tiny details are his way of saying, "You're important to me," without ever having to say a word. 7. He texts, then deletes the message. When he texts, then deletes the message, it's a clear sign of internal conflict, a battle between wanting to express himself and being afraid of how you might respond. He picks up the courage to type something out, maybe something honest, emotional, or vulnerable. But before hitting send, doubt takes over. What if I sound needy? What if she doesn't feel the same? What if I ruin everything? So, he erases it. Not because the feeling went away, but because the fear got louder. This kind of behavior usually comes from someone who's deeply in his feelings, but unsure if he has the space or security to show it. The message might have been something as simple as, "I miss you," or something more complex that revealed how much he actually cares. But instead of risking rejection, he convinces himself it's safer to say nothing at all. You might notice the typing dots appear and disappear, or he sends a short, safe message instead of what he really wanted to say. It's subtle, but meaningful. In those almost sent texts, there's a truth he's still too scared to share. A truth that says, "You mean more to me than I'm ready to admit." 8. He shows up when you least expect it. When he shows up when you least expect it, it's not a coincidence. It's his quiet way of staying close without making it obvious. Maybe you're at a place you casually mentioned, or you're having a tough day and suddenly he's there, checking in or offering help. It's like he senses when you need someone, even if you never ask. This kind of presence speaks volumes. He may not say how he feels, he may not confess anything directly, but his actions tell the story. He's falling for you, but fear holds him back from making it too clear. So instead, he chooses moments, small, unexpected appearances that say, "I'm still here," without using those exact words. It's also a way of keeping himself in your world, not too close to be vulnerable, but not too far to be forgotten. By showing up when you're not expecting him, he makes his presence felt in a way that feels natural, not forced. It's subtle, but intentional. He's watching from the sidelines, waiting for the right moment, all while hoping you'll notice that he's always near, even when you don't realize you need him. 9. He compliments you indirectly. When he compliments you indirectly, it's often his way of expressing admiration without making himself too emotionally exposed. Instead of saying something bold like, "You look beautiful," or "I really like you," he'll say things like, "That color looks good on you," or "You always have good taste." Subtle remarks that carry more meaning than they seem to. He might joke about how everyone must like you, or say things like, "No wonder people are drawn to you," pretending it's a casual observation. But behind those offhand comments is someone who's paying attention, someone who notices the little things and appreciates them deeply. This indirect approach often comes from fear. Fear of being too obvious, fear of rejection, or fear of revealing too much too soon. So instead, he wraps his feelings in light words, hoping you'll pick up on what he really means. He's trying to compliment you without crossing the line he's afraid to step over. In these quiet, half-hidden praises, he's really saying, "You impress me. I notice you. I care." Even if the words don't fully say it, the intention behind them always does. 10. He supports you quietly from the background. When he supports you quietly from the background, it's one of the most genuine signs that he cares deeply but is afraid to step forward. He might not always be the one cheering loudly in front of everyone, but he's there, watching, encouraging, and rooting for you in silence. Maybe he shares your work without tagging you, sends you useful advice, or simply checks in to make sure you're okay. His support isn't loud or flashy, It's subtle and often unnoticed by others, but it's steady, consistent, and meaningful. He celebrates your wins in his own quiet way, and when you're down, he's the one offering calm reassurance, even if he keeps his own feelings out of it. This quiet presence usually comes from someone who's emotionally invested, but hesitant to make it obvious. He doesn't want to pressure you or reveal too much, so instead, he chooses the background, a place where he can be close enough to help, but far enough to stay safe. In every quiet gesture, he's saying, "I'm here for you, even if you don't see me, even if I never say it out loud." And sometimes, that silent loyalty speaks louder than words ever could. 11. He disappears when you get too close. When he disappears as you start to get closer, it's not because he's lost interest. It's because the connection is becoming too real, too intense, and that scares him. He may genuinely want something deeper with you, but the moment he feels emotionally exposed, his instinct is to retreat. Getting close means letting his guard down, and for someone who's been hurt before or fears rejection, that's terrifying. You might notice things going well, conversations flowing, emotional walls coming down, and then suddenly, he pulls away. No explanation, less communication, a noticeable shift. It's confusing and it hurts, but it's often rooted in his internal struggle. He starts overthinking, wondering if he's too vulnerable, too obvious, or too invested. So instead of facing the feelings, he vanishes for a while, thinking distance will protect him. But this silence speaks loudly. It says, "I feel something, and I don't know what to do with it." It's not a lack of care. It's fear of what caring might lead to. He disappears not because he doesn't feel, but because he feels too much. And that's what makes it so complicated. 12. He acts cold, but his eyes say otherwise. When he acts cold, but his eyes say otherwise, it's a sign of someone caught between his feelings and his fear. On the surface, he might seem distant, uninterested, even emotionally numb, replying with short answers, avoiding deep conversations, or pretending he doesn't care. But if you really look at him, especially in the quiet moments, his eyes tell a completely different story. There's a softness in his gaze when he looks at you, a hesitation when you speak, a flicker of something unspoken that he can't quite hide. His words may be guarded, but his eyes are vulnerable, holding back emotions he's not ready to admit. It's almost as if his heart is trying to speak, but his mind is shutting it down. He acts cold to protect himself. Maybe he's been hurt before, maybe he thinks he's not enough, or maybe he's scared that if he shows how he really feels, it'll change everything. So instead, he keeps his walls up, but his eyes, they betray him. They're the one place he can't lie, the one part of him that still reaches out, hoping you'll see what he's too afraid to say out loud. I care, more than you know.